Yeah, I know. You don't need to tell me. I don't like this video topic either, but it is something we kind of have to consider, don't we? So what I'm going to do is refer to your attention to this article on TVA Sports written by none other than Jonathan Bernier. Yeah, I know, Jonathan Bernier writes articles now. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Montreal Canadiens, who will go and who will stay. This was posted on December 6th, so it is a little bit old, but as always, the link will be in the description if you want to go ahead and check out this article yourself. The Canadiens' face could be much different in a few weeks. Not because of the return of the many players who are injured, but because of the tangent that Jeff Gordon and the next GM could take. This is kind of the idea here. Montreal Canadiens, who is going to stick around, who's going to leave. There are a whole bunch of players here that are mentioned as potential candidates for being traded. And because it's a really big article going over a good amount of names, I thought I would open the floor to you to go out there in the comment section and give me your opinions as to who should get traded, when they should get traded, and where they should go. So this article goes over primarily a few very specific players, long-term guys on the team. So if we take a look at the Montreal Canadiens and we discuss who is on this squad and having a significantly long contract, the ones that come to mind right away: Christian Dvorak, signed till 2025. Yoel Armia, signed till 2025. Nick Suzuki, he's going on forever. Jake Evans is signed till 2025. So is David Savard. And then, of course, you have Brendan Gallagher on the LTIR. Josh Anderson is here. Jeff Petry is here. Shea Weber and Carey Price as well. This article singles out a lot of these players, and it starts out with Carey Price. It says for Carey Price, they shouldn't get this guy out of their organization before 2022. In light of what was said during the interview the other day, don't expect to see Carey Price in the lineup before the new year. The organization wants to take its time with Carey to give him a chance to get back on the ice at the appropriate time. So, what's the plan for Carey Price? What do you do with the most successful goalie in franchise history once he has shown he is back to good health? It's the no-move clause that limits the possibilities. However, the lure of winning the Stanley Cup could convince him to lift it. Price would be an interesting option for a well-heeled formation which lacks a trusted goaltender, like the Oilers, for example. However, it will not be easy to pass up. The Kraken didn't want him, even though it didn't cost anything, and that was probably the problem. Inevitably, the Montreal Canadiens will probably have to withhold part of his salary. A salary of a $10.5 million AAV does not fit easily into a payroll. There are indeed some other examples brought up over here, like, hey, Henrik Lundqvist, 6 years left in his 7-season deal where he earned $8.5 million and then that was bought out. There indeed are some concerns about the contract long-term, but if Carey Price is the warrior we know him to be, I think it would be a lot more realistic to be more optimistic about this guy than pessimistic. They should go. There's this part in the article talking about different names. They talk about Shea Weber. His career is probably over. However, by announcing his retirement, he would put an end to the $6 million he still has to receive in salary. If the Montreal Canadiens proceed in a rebuild, it will possibly go far below the salary cap. At that point, the possibility of breaking the allowable limit of $7.857 million, the equivalent amount of money of Weber's salary imprint on the payroll, will lapse. However, this imprint could be very useful to a team leaning against the ceiling, eager during the summer to get its hands on a high employee or to renew the agreement of one of its promising hopes. Now, this article is translated from French into English, so that translation isn't really the best, but essentially what it's saying here is if the Montreal Canadiens go for a rebuild, they might be in a position where their team is so cheap that they kind of need a guy like Shea Weber on their payroll to actually reach the cap floor. We had concerns about teams like Buffalo and Ottawa this offseason saying, hey, if they trade away Jack Eichel, for example, they need more money to keep themselves actually within the realm of NHL eligibility, because you need to be spending a minimum amount of money to actually be a team. So, for Shea Weber, because he is so expensive and because he technically isn't going to retire anytime soon, this contract could be sort of useful for any team that is like Tampa Bay, for example, where they want to go out there and use some more salary cap circumvention. Okay, I'm just kidding. But using the salary cap to your advantage, taking a guy like Shea Weber and putting him on the LTIR, so you have an extra $7.8 million that you're allowed to go over the cap. That is kind of how the LTIR cap relief works. Next up, Jeff Petry. The American has a no-trade clause in which he can register the name of 15 teams in which he does not want to end up, so that's half the league. At 33, in the twilight of his career, Petry certainly won't want to be involved in a rebuild. When you're further in your career like I am, time becomes an issue. The Canadiens will have decisions to make. The relaunch of a team can be done in 5 years, as in 2 years. It always depends on the choices, he said a few days ago. Therefore, this article concludes that the idea of Jeff Petry maybe even asking for a trade shouldn't be all too preposterous. However, most teams that aspire to top honors do not have enough space under the salary cap. Petry is making $6.25 million a season till the end of, 2024, 2025. Now, for Petry, it's kind of funny because this is a guy that really was a very solid defenseman for a good amount of time. We're all kind of familiar with the body of work that Jeff Petry has done with the team, starting out in 2017, 2018. That's when he really started to put himself on the map as an underrated defenseman, playing behind Weber, who was a lot better than what he showcased off with the Edmonton Oilers system in previous years. Now, this season, he's at 2 points, 25 games, it's all the way down there. He has taken a big step back. Even in the power play, the guy is absolutely not as effective as he had been before. You could say, oh, it's the bigger role, now there's no more Weber, he's getting tougher minutes, this and that. But he went from 42 points in 55 games last season, which if you do the math on that, 42 divvy 55 multiplied out by 82, he was on pace for 62 points, and now he's got 2. He's on pace for 6 points this season. Dude, not a good year. If there was a time to go out there and explore a trade for Jeff Petry, honestly, I don't think that time is now. The guy's trade value is probably at the lowest it has ever been ever since his Edmonton days, and considering the fact that he's got a big contract, it's going to make things even worse. Moving over onto other players over here, they talk about Brandt Gallagher, they talk about how he's got 5 more years left, the 30-goal seasons are probably behind him, so we'll see if there are any teams that would be interested there. Yoel Armia is also over here, he's got 3 more years, the big winger tends to fall asleep, however, he is the type of player that coaches appreciate, straightforward, efficient, and reliable defensively. There also is a conversation going on about David Savard, a deep rear who has still not found his ease in Montreal, probably because he's in the wrong chair. The Lightning acquired him to make him their top 6 defender, which is not really what the Montreal Canadiens got him to do. However, his fate could very well be linked to those of Petry and Ben Chiarot, the most interesting catch at the Canadian blue line. As is the case with their center core, the Montreal Canadiens cannot just trade everybody. So these are our names over here that are discussed as guys that probably could, should, or maybe even would be traded. Shea Weber, Jeff Petry, Brandt Gallagher, Yoel Armia, David Savard, and then there's a conversation going on about Carey Price. Price, however, is not in the they should go category, it's just another discussion they bring up over here. But when it comes to each of these players, if the Montreal Canadiens want to go full rebuild, there is definitely no doubt that Gallagher, Armia, Petry, these guys would fetch you some value. It's just, this season is kind of the worst season to go out there and start selling your assets because, you kind of know what's going on in Montreal, right? Everybody is playing poorly in this team. Sure, you have guys like Ben Chiarot that might be able to get a first-round pick, but when you're trading guys like Jeff Petry, it's an entirely different conversation when you have more and more years added onto that contract. Petry, it's a lot more difficult than Ben Chiarot because Chiarot expires this offseason. So for Petry, you need to go out there and assure NHL teams that are looking towards this guy, hey, the 42-point and 55-game defenseman from last season still exists. He's not this bad. Sorry, guys. The numbers are misleading. 2 points, 20-something games, that's not an indicator of how good he actually is. And the Montreal Canadiens are going to have to go out of their way and try to convince teams of that fact. Because we know Petry can be a lot better than he is right now. He was taken out of the lineup because he's injured. Hey, he's probably been injured for a while based off of the way this guy was performing. So for Montreal, you're going to have to go out there and do some extra legwork to convince teams that guys like Gallagher and that guys like Petry and David Savard still have it in them to be better than they showed off this season. You're selling low, and as a result, it's a lot more difficult to get fair value. Ben Chiarot might be the easy one because he expires this offseason, but you're going to have some more conversations if you want to make things worthwhile for Montreal Canadiens fans. This is kind of what I was expecting, or not really expecting, but just kind of anticipating when it comes to the departure of Marc Bergevin. Bergevin was so liberal when it came to making trades, and he was so willing to do it that I think Canadiens fans might get a little bit surprised by, let's just say, any potential inactivity. Let's say the Montreal Canadiens go a year or two without trading away any of these guys. It will be a pretty big change of pace because Bergevin was so quick to move players whenever he felt it was necessary that any sort of change might be a little bit of a culture shock. But either way, talk to me in the comments. What do you think about Armia, Gallagher, Savard, Petry, Weber, and Carey Price as well? What do you think about these guys and their futures in the Montreal Canadiens organization? Do you think they should stick around? Would you trade these guys instead? And what is the going rate for a guy like Brendan Gallagher? If you trade this guy away, what do you get in return? Same thing can be said and asked about the rest of the players on this list. Also, yeah, Carey Price too. I forgot about him. Yeah, let me know in the comments what do you think about Carey Price as well. All this stuff, comment section is your floor. I hope you enjoyed this video. 99. And bye.